Hi folks, and welcome to another video. It's been a while since I've done it. What I'm going to look at today is carrier interdiction and how it actually works. I believe it's a very important aspect in the game, and I requested a special symbol put on the fleet icon if it is permitted to actually carrier interdict. So the idea behind carrier interdiction is as follows. What you usually do is you're creating some sort of port blockade, which is very important in this game because you want to be able to isolate the unit before invasion, bring down its supply level. I don't want to get into invasion techniques in this video. What I want to just kind of concentrate on is carrier interdiction. So what I've done is I've created a bunch of little units here, and you can see here, and what I want you to concentrate here on is the effectiveness level. Okay, so the first question I want to answer is there like a hard cap and an effectiveness with regard to the possibility that you might not get carrier interdiction? I know from the manual, if this 3 here, notice it's 3 out of 3, so if your carrier unit has been damaged and it's less than half, it will not interdict. So that's no surprise to me. But since carrier units are just floating air units, I assumed, following the manual here, that if the effectiveness is greater than 50%, then it should be able to interdict. And maybe the calculations are done somewhere with the task force. I don't know. Anyway, I was playing a game against the AI, and I thought I had set up a beautiful blockade, and what ended up happening is the enemy fleet could move in and out. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to concentrate because I've already done the testing here, okay? And what I'm going to show you here is that the hard cap is actually 67%. So 67% and above, what will end up happening is your carrier force will actually interdict. I also have a little surprise that I surprised myself in this video in the way it goes about calculating it, but again, I'm going to try to explain this the best I can in a short little video. So what I'm going to do is, truck is a single island here. I'm going to create a little blockade, and the best place to place it is where, you know, the enemy could actually land and possibly invade truck. I just want to prevent the invasion at all. I know some people like to encircle it. That's great, but I don't want to concentrate on that strategy at all. I just want to take a look at the blockade itself. So now, as it stands right now, since it's a small island hex, all contained within the hex, all I require is one vessel to blockade it. Now, this is at 67% effectiveness. What I'm going to do is move through the next turn, and I believe that this thing's going to interdict. But what ends up happening is, to my surprise, even a fleet at 67% effectiveness, when I go to bring in an enemy fleet, what ends up happening is it doesn't do anything. I get no messages. I check the reports here. There's nothing. And I'm going, what the heck happened? Like, this guy's supposed to do something. So then I started thinking, is there a hard cap? In other words, is there a certain effectiveness that the fleet will actually attack in? So what I'm going to do here is, I've got the game already kind of pre-saved into the first move here, so I'm going to have to load the game here again and go into test here. What I found out was that there is a hard cap, and again, not going through all the numbers. I went through 72, 71 effectiveness, 70%, 69, and so forth down the line. What I actually found was that the hard cap is 67%. So again, getting back to this, here's my one which is at 66%, which did not interdict. But when I go to the 67% one, so you can see 67%, again, I got my experience up to 95%. There's no other vessels involved here. I just want to concentrate on this number here. It's got all the planes, you name it. It's got all the bells and whistles. So here's my unit here. I go to the next turn. And my experiments here tell me that at 67% effectiveness, this fleet should carrier interdict. And it tried it, it just failed it. So you can see here that it just spotted the enemy fleet, but it did attempt to do something at 67%. Usually it actually does do something. It does do with an attack. If you don't believe me, and I can show you again just to kind of show the 67, but you can see the actual unit attempted to do something. The 66% would do it, and I couldn't find that 66% anywhere in the manual, or the 67%. So it was very frustrating sometimes during the game when I was playing, trying to understand why my carrier fleet did nothing. It just stood there. Here you're doing a port blockade, and it absolutely does nothing at all. So let me try that again just to kind of show you. And again, the idea behind this is straightforward and simple. I just want to prove to you that 67% is the hard cap here. So again, I'm going to move this into position. You see the 67% effectiveness. And just a reminder, if your carrier is damaged and there's only 1 out of 3 in the strength, so that is if the strength is 1, it will not interdict. It will at 2, but it won't at 1. So now I go in there, and lo and behold, again, when I go to the top here, I see that it will interdict. In fact, it will interdict 100% of the times. At 66%, it will interdict 0% of the time. So if it turns out that your effectiveness overall is less than 67%, you're not going to be able to interdict, and that turns out to be a very important number. That may change during versions. I'm running 0.8.1 at this point in time, but it is very important to realize that. Now, what ended up happening out of all this, which again to my surprise when I was taking a look at all the units and how they move and so forth down the line, to my surprise here, and again just kind of exiting out and reloading the game, I found out that other ships can impact the actual your effectiveness. So what ends up happening is your fleet effectiveness is actually calculated. So now the numbers that I'm dealing with here, straightforward and simple. I'm trying to actually deal with variables that I can take a look at, and easier numbers. So remember, 67% was the key in effectiveness here. Okay, now this is something that I discovered. So here is this vessel here at 67% that will guarantee my interdiction. Okay, so what do? I grab it and I bring that into place here. Now there's my carrier. This thing should interdict. But if you take a look, I have 2 destroyers here, one at 76% and one at 16%. I'm going to take this destroyer, I'm going to include it with my fleet. Now, when I take a look at this, what ends up happening is this no longer is 67% effectiveness. My fleet has less than 67% effectiveness. I mean, I could calculate it if I want, okay? So whatever it is, 83 divided by 2 here, 41%, whatever, okay? But let's see what happens when I go to do that. So my carrier's at 67% effectiveness. I know that that should interdict. But when I go to do my calculation here, or when I go to actually bring a unit in, lo and behold, to my surprise, and this is the part that stunned me, I go to bring it in and nothing happens. I see here in my reports, nothing happened within. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on a second here. What's going on? Why didn't this fleet? I have a CV at 67% effectiveness, which I think is good. Anything above a 60% I would have assumed would have done it. So it turns out that when the calculations are actually being made, it's actually the fleet calculations that are being made, because I can turn around and use the same 67% unit here, and what will end up happening is with another destroyer with a higher effectiveness, and lo and behold, it will actually be able to interdict. So let's take a look at this. You can see here I've sort of set this up in such a way. So here's my 67 again. You know for sure that that one will interdict. Here's my destroyer that I put with it that it wouldn't interdict at 16%. Beside it is, yes, it's got 76%. So I know that when I combine these two together, 67 and 76, I'm at about 72.5% effectiveness. So for me, it's above 67, that hard cap, and lo and behold, this should end up interdicting. So I'm going to go to the next turn here. just so that you can see it. And as I go to bring my unit in, lo and behold, I got my carrier interdiction. May not have done anything because of the rain probably, but it did interdict. It did do at least an attempt to prevent that ship from actually going in there. Now, when I took a look at this, and my surprise was that surface vessels actually impact the carrier being able to complete its missions. So it would be nice to have an icon, I guess, to be able to say that, you know, when you're over 67%, so that, you know, hey, guess what, this particular fleet, and if the number changes over time with different versions, that an icon similar to what you have with aircraft, being able to either full support or not full support, that little blue triangle versus the red triangle, that would be nice to be able to put on a fleet, because then I don't have to do the calculations, because some of them get very convoluted. So for example, if I turn around and I'm taking a look here, and I've got my CV vessel here, so here's my 67. I know this one will actually do some damage here, so here's my 67, and I've got another carrier force here. It's at 76. No name here, sorry about that, but I just was too lazy to put a name on there. And then I go back to that little destroyer here that's at 16%. So now when I go to combine these three effectiveness, I'm actually going to be below. So I'm actually going to end up being below the effectiveness that I require. It's going to be, like I said, about 53%. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn around, I'm going to take the 66% one, and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to see, I've never done this, but I'm just going to throw that here. Actually, I'm going to take that back because I just didn't follow my #1 rule of putting the actual fleet on the invasion hex. Okay, so here I've got 66. Here I've got 16, which to me is no good, but I got a 76 here. So when I add those two together, I'm over also the 67 mark. So I'm going to move forward here because I've got two sort of units set up to be able to actually invade or try to get into port to deal with the blockade. So as usual, I go to the first unit here. So remember, this here is below, it's 53%. So when I go into truck, no surprise, does nothing. Okay, now this one here should be above 67%. So I could take this unit because nothing happens and undo something else I don't like too much. Because again, you never know if information is provided here. So if I look at this, oh, look at that, it tells me a lot of information, but it could have told me that before, I'm not sure, so I didn't check it out. But yeah, it's got, because this is a high level ocean hex here. But I'm going to go in here now. This one here should interdict, and voila, higher than 67%, it interdicts. So when you're looking at carrier interdiction, what you're really looking at here is the entire fleet's effectiveness. So when you take a look at the calculations here and how they're actually working out, if you are, you know, if you want your fleet to interdict, what you need to do is a calculation here of its effectiveness. So 64, well, now it's changed. Now it's 64, 57, and 14 after that, the next turn, because now I'm on low supply. But it seems to be a little bit too much micromanaging, always to have to add all of these things up and to see that you're over 56%. I can see here right off the bat I'm not going to be over 67 because there isn't a single number over 67 here. When I look at this one, there's no surprise here too. So you can do it with a quick glance out of all of it. But I think this is something a lot of people didn't know, because I mean, even me, myself, I'd be in the middle of a game or whatever, and I'd be trying to figure out how come this thing didn't carrier interdict. So it seems like the way carrier interdiction works is there's two factors out of all of this. I'm only showing one here, the effectiveness. If you sum up, that is, if you add up all the effectiveness of your fleet and it turns out to be below 67%, that is 66% and below, your carrier fleet will not interdict. But if your carrier fleet turns out to be higher than actually 67%, and you can see I'm now below everything here because I've done multiple turns, then your carrier fleet will interdict if it's above 67%. So keep that in mind as you're playing the game. Like I said, hopefully there'll be a little icon here in the future that says, oh yeah, this fleet, it has the potential of interdicting. I really like the intercept circle. That's a really good addition to 0.81. I hope all of you are enjoying the game. Good luck, have fun, and thanks for watching. Bye now.